In this episode, we're talking all about what you should be putting in your house rules, so stay tuned. Vacation Rental Machine helps hosts just like you learn how to start, grow, and scale your short-term rental business. This show is all about creating systems that help you automate your business, giving you more time and money freedom. If you're ready to start living the vacation rental life, then subscribe to this podcast today. Come and join us on our Facebook group, The Host Nation, where we'll be talking about starting, automating, and scaling a short-term rental business. Now, on to the show. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation, to another episode of Vacation Rental Machine. In this episode, we're talking about what you should be putting in your house rules. So I know that there's a lot of debate about how many house rules should you be putting in there, what are the types of things that you should be putting in there, and it can be a lot for people. It's like one of those first steps to becoming a host is defining who you are, what your property is in the house rules. And there's never going to be two hosts that have the same exact philosophy. Everybody does things a little bit differently, but we do want to create a system that is repeatable and that does protect us. One of the big things, John, that I always hear is you don't want to include a lot in your house rules because nobody even reads them and nobody follows the rules anyways. So why should I even include a bunch of rules if nobody's even going to pay attention to them?
You got to have it there. I mean, house rules are like CYA of Airbnb or short-term rentals. You want to make sure that you protect yourself in many ways. If you have to cancel on someone, you want to make sure you have a reason to cancel, that they broke a rule. If you have nothing there, you are stuck. You have nothing that you can do. So I prefer to have my key rules there, but my key rules might be more than 15. I'm okay with that. And I send it in a message after the guest checks in as well, just to make sure they are fully aware of everything. It might be a long message, but technically, I'm covering myself. And you guys should definitely be covering yourself as well.
On one of the episodes of Success Stories, we actually had a host that had to deal with someone's throw up. Like someone throwed up and the guest, all they did, they said, oh, well, I cleaned it up a little bit and they only charged the cleaning fee. They didn't have like anything in their house rules that said, hey, if you have biohazard, which is the term that they started including in their house rules, biohazard, like, excrements, throw up, stuff like that, then you're going to be charged like a certain fee amount. So I guess one of the big things is like, how much should we be putting? Should we be putting like price points in our house rules for if they do X, Y, and Z, then it's going to cost them this much?
It's you want to put it there. Yes. Will it be enforceable? That piece is up to you and the resolution center of the platform that you're using. 9 times out of 10, the guest will refuse to pay. If they refuse to pay, then you're submitting a ticket like into, let's just say, the resolution center for Airbnb, which has the host guarantee up to $1 million. Well, if you're submitting something to that, and even if you said, hey, this thing automatically equals $150 in your rules, they won't honor that specifically. You have to fight them for it if you're really going to get it. What they will honor is an invoice that shows the remediation of that. So once you have that and you have the invoice from somebody else, you can send it in to them and say, hey, I spent that money. Like, it's not just I'm claiming it because it happened. Then they'll pay that out. The guest, you might be able to get the guest to pay just based off of the rules. But in most cases, they won't always just say, yes, they accept the charge and pay.
So there are obviously a lot of house rules that you could be doing in this, but basically what John is saying that you want to cover everything, cover all your bases in this. And you can't just say like, oh, if someone throws up, it's going to be $300. Where's that $300 coming from? Is that just like a number that you're coming up with? They want proof. They want evidence of what it's actually going to cost. So if someone has to go out there, if one of your cleaning teams has to go out there and they charge $300 and you're able to get an invoice and then show that, then that it might be proof that says like, hey, this is how much it costs me, which is why it's going to cost the guests this much. But you can't just create random things that don't really make sense. From our other show, Short-Term Rental Success Stories, one of the questions that I always ask guests is, what is one of the house rules that you've started including that has really saved you before? And one of those is actually locals must contact before booking, because it's one of those things where if a local books, and just like we were talking about in the previous episode, one of the ways that you can prevent this from happening is including this rule in your house rules. because you can cancel the booking if they are booking with you and they don't have any good information, if you get an uneasy feeling, and you can just say, hey, our house rules, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cancel this because locals have to contact before booking. It's just one of those preventative measures that can keep you out of trouble. But there is a long list of different things that you can include in it. We're not going to go off of all of them, but we're just going to list maybe some of the top ones. If you want our full list of all our house rules, you can include that. We'll include a download so you can get all of our house rules, and we'll include a little pop-up for it here where you can go and get that, or just go to shorttermsage.com/house rules, and you'll be able to download our list of everything that we're including in our house rules. But let's just list some of the most important ones that everybody should be having, John.
All right. So I'm going to go off of my top 5. So my first one is really a deterrent for people that want to book instantly. And it's still that last minute guess, but it's still kind of geared towards the locals. It says bookings within 24 hours of stay, check-in, will have to present their driver's license. Why is that there? That is there because I want to make sure that those people that instantly book right before my cutoff time of 7 p.m. don't think that they're still going to come in and throw a party, whether they're from any state, right? I just want them to physically know that they're going to maybe see somebody. Somebody's going to go put eyes on them and their guests. Do I do it? No. But it's there just as a deterrent. My second rule, of course, is going to be no parties, no events, no birthdays, no bachelor parties, no bachelorette parties, none of that stuff, right? You want to basically be very broad about all that. And you want to make sure you stay true to that because people will try different little ways to get you to say, oh, it's just a girl's trip. I don't know. I've seen the movie, right? So you want to make sure you deter and just be broad across the board. Make sure you do it for every reservation or else it's discrimination. Next thing that I got. Do not have more guests than what you quoted in your reservation. This is one of those things, just like we just talked about in the previous episode, guests booked with one and then messaged back and said that it's just him in a 3-bedroom house, but yet there were 5 people at my door. Next one that I got is no video productions. I don't know what more to say. We have furnished apartments that could be used for any type of thing. Could be a podcast, could be any type of thing. I want to either be aware of what you're going to be recording there because I don't know if it's going to match my brand, if I want to be presented that way. But then also when it's in your rules, you'll get cool companies that want to message you and say, hey, I'm filming this documentary. I love your space. Can I interview some people here? And if it's something you're passionate about or something that you feel like won't hurt you, do it. It's all good because you might get them to come back. I've had food photographed in my place. I thought that was cool, right? I've had a documentary filmed in another place that's going to be airing on Discovery. So that's really cool, right? Maybe I can just put that out and say, hey, it's a famous spot. Maybe I could charge more money. But that's what's in my rules. That's my top. What do you got?
I wanted to make a comment about the no video production and why that's a good disclosure because, one, it's you want to know what's happening in your property. And if you do include that, then if you don't include that, then people might record and they won't tell you. And then you'll never know about these awesome things that could be happening. On the other end, if someone is recording, like we had a host in the host nation that actually shared that someone was actually filming a porno in their property. Now, how they found that out, I have no clue. But yeah, they definitely found that out, and they had to get them kicked out because you don't want that in your property.
Good luck finding a cleaning crew that wants to clean that up.
So my top 5 house rules that I like to include is 1, locals must contact before booking. That's a big one. I actually include in my house rules that people take off their shoes at the door because shoes, just being part of, Japanese and being part of this culture where it's like, your shoes, you're walking around outside everywhere. You take this into your house and that's really gross. It also helps your cleaners from having to do a lot of extra stuff. Like if they have muddy boots or maybe, some people might even sleep with their shoes in the bed. Like, I don't know who does that, but I wouldn't want that. So having your shoes taken off in the property, I like to include that because it saves me time from having to mop every single time that a guest comes into the property. I also include number 3 is that this is a self check-in property. So I put that in the house rules that, this is a self check-in property. If people are having issues and just like asking a bunch of questions and haven't read the rules, basically in this rule, I'm saying you have to read the rules. You have to read that this is a self check-in property and that there's steps for you to be able to check in. Now, if people are still having issues with the check-in, like, sure, I'll help them out. But this is just like another extra step so that people aren't reaching out to me right away, asking a bunch of questions when it's like, hey, everything's right there. I can refer them back to the house manual with all the steps for them to be able to check themselves in. Number 4 is that there's no extra guests without prior consent or pets. So I don't want people bringing pets or guests, things that I'm not aware of into the property. They definitely need to consent prior to that. And then number 5 is that there are quiet hours between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. I know John said 9 a.m. to whatever time. You want to give a little bit of buffer, but having a time period of your quiet hours in your house rules is important because Airbnb doesn't tell you like, hey, these are the quiet hours. You have to be the one that says these are the hours that you should be including, and that if you don't follow that, then there could be some type of repercussion that could happen.
As an honorable mention, some of my other rules are more insurance based. So they include, we're not responsible for any injuries on the property. We're not responsible for left belongings, and that we require our guests to have some type of traveler's insurance that does cover those things. Now, people don't really get it, but it's just one of those things that I could refer back to as a CYA to say, oh, but if you got this, then you're okay. So you lost your glasses on the trip. I'm not paying $1,000 for your glasses.
So obviously there are a lot of house rules, and it's important to include these things to be able to cover all your bases, because not everybody's going to be going through and reading every single house rule that you have. People don't do that. A lot of people, it's like the terms and conditions. They just kind of flip through and they're like, okay, whatever. But there are important things in there. And if people start falling out of line, or if people start doing things, you want to have these things included so that you can get your payout, so that you can protect your property or yourself, or if there is some type of bigger issue. So again, we're going to include all of our house rules in this little download link right here. You can just go to shorttermsage.com/house rules, and you can download that for free so you can start applying these rules to be able to keep yourself out of trouble. And with all that being said, Host Nation, until next time, keep on hosting. Hope you hosts found value in this episode. If you did, please go on over to iTunes and leave us a review, as that would greatly support the show. If you'd like to connect with John, the community, and I, then go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation. Talk to you hosts in the next episode. Keep on hosting.